O my servants, sorrow not if, in these days and on this earthly plane, things contrary to your wishes have been ordained and manifested by God, for days of blissful joy, of heavenly delight, are assuredly in store for you. Worlds, holy and spiritually glorious, will be unveiled to your eyes. You are destined by Him, in this world and hereafter, to partake of their benefits, to share in their joys, and to obtain a portion of their sustaining grace. To each and every one of them you will, no doubt, attain. Baha'u'llah.
Be calm, be strong, be grateful, and become a lamp full of light, that the darkness of sorrows be annihilated, and that the sun of everlasting joy arise from the dawning place of heart and soul, shining brightly. Upon thee be the glory of the most glorious. Abdu'l-Baha.
Thank you. So this week, we're really happy to have Miss Faith Holmes, and she'll be talking about moving from stress and anxiety into creation. Faith has a passion for transformational change management, entrepreneurship, and helping to create oneness in the world. Her life's purpose is to help individuals, nonprofits, communities, and corporations elevate the human experience and become the greatest version of themselves. She believes diversity should be our greatest strength, not a weakness, and has dedicated her life to elevating unity and diversity. She's experienced firsthand the transformational influence of Neuro Change Solutions and now accompanies others through a transformational workshop called Change Your Mind, Create New Results. Faith Holmes has worked in the field of race relations for over 35 years. She was outraged when she went off to college and learned how miseducated she'd been, and therefore pursued a double major in African American history and psychology, believing this country must understand our true history and the psychological impact it has had on us all. Therefore, she's dedicated a greater portion of her life to work towards social justice. Her purpose is to elevate the human experience, to create oneness in the world, to shine light in the world, and help teachers, students, businesses, and organizations know that they can change their reality and create the life they want to live instead of settling for the life they have. So with that, I'm happy to hand it off to Ms. Holmes.
Thank you so much. Please call me Faith. It is so incredible to see everyone here today. Thank you so much for joining us to explore what it means to move from stress and anxiety and into creation. So I want to take a moment to give you guys a little bit of information if those of you who are here who may not know much about the Baha'i Faith. And you're going to learn a bit through my presentation today, but just in case this is the first time you've ever been introduced to the Baha'i Faith, the Baha'i Faith is the newest independent world religion. And this faith was founded in the late 1800s. And the nutshell belief is that there's only one God, that because there's only one God, all the religions are one, that God sends manifestations or messengers throughout history to bring humanity forward both spiritually and socially. So religion to Baha'is is progressive. We believe in progressive revelation, that God sent the manifestations of God throughout times in history to bring us forward spiritually and socially. And so starting with Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, the Bab, and now Baha'u'llah. That includes also Krishna, Zoroaster, and the Buddha. And so because there's only one God, there's really just one faith. And that faith is like chapters in a book. And each of those chapters build upon the next to help humanity improve. So just in a little nutshell, and then finally that all humanity is one, that we come from the same source and that we are created in the image and likeness of God, the creator of us all. And in the Baha'i writings, it's interesting because a lot of people struggle with religion today. But in the Baha'i writings, what it talks about God is that God is an unknowable essence, and that we can only know that unknowable essence through the manifestations that is sent. So it's not this man, white man on a throne in judgment of people, but rather we have been created in the image and likeness of God. So I am going to take you all through a little bit of a journey. And it's really interesting because when you put together a talk like this, you want to be succinct, you want to share, but also you want to allow Spirit to guide you. So putting together a PowerPoint presentation can be a little challenging because it's like from A to B to C. But I also want to allow Spirit to guide our conversation today. And so I'm going to take you all on a little bit of a journey. I'm going to share my screen. And if you'll just bear with me as maybe we take a little bit of a departure at times, but I just really want to share some of the things that I've learned as far as where spirituality and science come together. And I want to start here. So the topic today is moving from stress and anxiety and into creation. And this is an exploration of the intersection of spirituality and science. When I was a teenager, I read this quote from Baha'u'llah. Baha'u'llah is the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith. And I read this quote from him, and it really greatly impacted my life. Build for yourself such houses as the rains and floods can never destroy, which shall protect you from the changes and chances of this life. I know many of you, like me, have gone through difficult times in your lives. And I've always wondered, how is it? Sorry about that. I've always wondered, how is it that we build for ourselves such houses that the rains and floods can never destroy? And I was someone who did a lot of praying, but I did not do much meditating. And what I've learned, not only from the Baha'i writings, but also from science, is that that meditative state is how you can build for yourself such houses that the rains and floods can never destroy, which will protect us from the changes and chances of this life. So I did a talk for you all a couple of years ago, and it was my spiritual journey out of darkness. So that really is the precursor to this talk. It's a little bit of a part 2, but not really. But if you want to know in more detail, kind of my own journey out of the darkest period of my life when I was going through that dark night of the soul, then you can go ahead and take a look at that talk as well. But before we go into that, I want to talk about what stress is. So the American Psychological Association says that stress is a physical or mental response to an external cause, such as having a lot of homework or having an illness. A stressor may be a one-time or short-term experience, or it can happen repeatedly and over a long period of time. Now, what most people don't talk about is the mind-body connection to stress. So when we have a stressful event that happens in our life, one of the things that we need to understand is that every time we have a thought, there is a chemical reaction in our body. So if we are stressed out, if we are struggling with something great in our life and we're going over it mentally over and over and over again, then the chemical reaction, the chemical release throughout our body is very great. And that's something that will create disease in our lives. We know scientifically today that it's proven that stress causes disease in the body. But what if we could also create health and wellness through our thoughts? And that's where we're going to end up today. So let's also take a look about what is anxiety. Anxiety is your body's reaction to stress and can occur even if there's no current threat. If the anxiety doesn't go away and begins to interfere with your life, it could affect your health. You could experience problems with sleeping or your immune, digestive, cardiovascular, and even your reproductive systems. You may also be at high risk for developing a mental illness such as anxiety disorder or depression. So it's really important that we understand what it is that causes stress and anxiety in our lives. Because if we do this, then we can recorrect. And so it was during a time in my life where I was really, truly going through a dark night of the soul. I don't know if any of you can relate to this, but I felt like I was in a very dark place. I felt like I was in a very dark tunnel, and I didn't have a way of seeing light in front of me. I prayed every day, but yet I still had the mountain of debt. I still had all of the feelings of inadequacy or failure or feeling like I disappointed my loved ones that weighed heavily on my shoulders. And it was during this time in my life where I was truly face down on the mat. This was about 5 or 6 years ago, that a dear friend introduced me to someone by the name of Dr. Joe Dispenza. And Dr. Joe Dispenza wrote a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And this book changed me. It answered so many questions that I had spiritually that I knew was truth, but I didn't necessarily have the roadmap of how to get there. So one of the things that helped me understand this connection of science and spirituality was the 5 steps to prayer. And when I was a kid, I read this when I was like 12 years old. And the first step says to pray and meditate about it. Use the prayers of the manifestations as they have the greatest power. Then remain in the silence of contemplation for a few minutes. Step 2, arrive at a decision and hold this. This decision is usually born during the contemplation. It may seem almost impossible of accomplishment, but if it seems to be an answer to prayer or a way of solving a problem, then immediately take the next step. Step 3, have determination to carry the decision through. Many fail here. The decision butting into determination is blighted and instead becomes a vague wish or longing. When determination is born, immediately take the next step. Step 4 is have faith and confidence that the power will flow through you, the right way will appear, the door will open, the right thought, the right message, the right principle, or the right book will be given to you. Have confidence and the right thing will come to your need. Then, as you arise from prayer, take at once the 5th step. Step 5, act as though it had all been answered. Then act with tireless, ceaseless energy, and as you act, you yourself will become a magnet, which will attract more power to your being until you become an unobstructed channel for the divine power to flow through you. So as I was reading Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, one of the things that Dr. Joe talked about was a formula of how you act as though it has already been achieved. And it wasn't until I had read this book and understood the formula that I could understand the roadmap or the science behind which I could act as though it had already been achieved. And one of the things that Dr. Joe talks about is how when you have an intention and you want to manifest something in your life, such as good health, maybe, then you need to get very clear on what that looks like for you. Write it down. Write down 4 or 5 things over on the left-hand side of your paper about what that would include. It might mean that you have a lot of vitality, that you are full of energy, that you are sleeping well, that you wake up fresh and renewed, right? But this is not happening currently in your life. But you write these things down over the left-hand side of your paper. And on the right-hand side of your paper, in the middle, you'll put a letter H for health, and you'll draw some squiggly lines around it. But over on the right-hand side of the paper, what you do is you talk about the feelings, the emotions that you will experience once all of these things over on the left-hand side of your paper manifest. And then you go into meditation and you feel the emotions of how you would feel if those things were a reality. And you don't come out of meditation until you can feel those emotions. And then you walk through the day feeling those emotions. And he says, as you act, you yourself become a magnet. The exact same wording, not the exact same wording, but very similar to what Shoghi Effendi says. This passage here, it's not a writing from the Baha'i Faith, but it's considered a pilgrim's note. But it was written to an individual who asked, when I pray, what do I do? And so the first step is to pray and to meditate. Many pray but do not remain for the last half of the first step. Some who meditate arrive at a decision but fail to hold it. Few have the determination to carry the decision through. Still fewer have the confidence that the right thing will come to their need. But how many remember to act as though it had all been answered? How true are these words? Greater than the prayer is the spirit in which it is uttered. And greater than the way it is uttered is the spirit in which it is carried out. So act as though it had all been answered. Then act with tireless, ceaseless energy. And as you act, you yourself will become a magnet, which will attract more power to your being until you become an unobstructed channel for the divine power to flow through you. Here's Dr. Joe talking about this a little bit. It's just a minute, but I want to share it with each of you.
If you said, okay, I'm going to work with my body and I'm going to start breathing and I'm going to start feeling emotions that I do want to feel, the heart starts producing a very profound signal. It starts to produce an external magnetic field. It's measurable. So now you have a coherent brain, which means you can get very intentional. And you have a coherent heart, which means you can feel the emotions of your future before it happens. Somehow you have this broadcasting of this Wi-Fi signal. And the brain tends to be electrical in nature, so it sends out an electrical charge into the field. The heart is the magnetic charge. It's what draws things to us. It's the magnetic field. And now you actually, by changing the way you think and the way you feel, you're changing the signal in the field. And if you're able to maintain that state for an extended period of time, I say something magical is going to happen in your life. If you said...
So, over the past 20 years, I have been deeply excited about science and spirituality. I had read this book called The Heart's Code, Tapping into the Power and Wisdom of Heart Energy. And this book is incredible. I want to share a short passage from you. But basically what this talks about is the cellular memory that our heart very specifically carries. And this book is about transplant patients who have received other people's hearts and other organs. And the scientific research behind this work is just mind-blowing. And so I want to share a quick story with each of you from the book. I recently spoke to an international group of psychologists, psychiatrists, and social workers meeting in Houston, Texas. I spoke to them about my idea about the central role of the heart in our physical and spiritual life. The following my presentation, a psychiatrist came to the microphone during the questions and answers session and asked me about one of her patients who experienced, and spoke to me about one of her patients whose experience seemed to substantiate my ideas about cellular memories and a thinking heart. The case disturbed her so much that she struggled to speak through her tears. Sobbing to the point that the audience and I had difficulty understanding her, she said, "I have a patient, an 8-year-old little girl who received the heart of a murdered 10-year-old girl. Her mother brought her to me when she started screaming at night about her dreams of the man who had murdered the donor. She said the daughter knew who it was. After several sessions, I just could not deny the reality of what this child was telling me. Her mother and I finally decided to call the police. And using the description from the little girl, they found the murderer. He was easily convicted with evidence my patient provided. The time, the weapon, the place, the clothes he wore, what the little girl he killed had said to him. Everything the little heart transplant recipient reported was completely accurate. This book goes into many examples of the cellular memory that we hold within our bodies. So I also became very excited about Dr. Emoto's work, The Hidden Messages in Water. I don't know if any of you are familiar with his work, but he was a Japanese scientist who would take words and tape them to vials of water. And one word would be love, another word would be hate, and then take photographs of the images, and the water that heard the words love would look like this, these beautiful, incredible snowflakes, none never the same. And the word that heard the water that heard the word hate would be deformed and yellowish. And I went deeply into his understanding because also when I was like 8 years old, I remember asking my mother, there's something in the Baha'i writings where Baha'u'llah says that backbiting is the most grievous of sins. And I remember as an 8-year-old asking my mom, like, why is that more like, grievous than killing someone or stabbing them or beating them or, any of the horrible things that happen in this world, right? And it wasn't until I discovered Dr. Emoto's work that I understood the science behind what Baha'u'llah was saying. So the power of our words are so important. These are just a few of the examples. He's also done a lot of experiments about prayer. And so you see the effect of water on immune vibration before and after. Now, this is very interesting. The second photograph on the right-hand side, there is a lake in Japan that had chlorine in it, and it's impossible to freeze and take pictures of that. But he had this experiment that he did with 500 people all over the world, sending prayer to water, and then look at the snowflakes or the ice crystals he was able to discover afterwards. You can also see all of the different experiments that he did. Now, what I started to tell you was he would tape the words to the water, but then he had the thought, well, what if I say it? And he'd say it, and then he's like, well, there's vibration in sound, but what happens if I only think it? And every single experiment turned out the same way. So you can see that the word peace made a beautiful image, the word spirit, but look at how deformed the words you disgust me are, or the words you full. But if we look at imagine or amazing grace, how beautiful they are. So it was during this time that I got so excited about that relationship between science and spirituality. And after I came out of my dark night of the soul and really got excited about the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza and the scientific research that he's doing, I became a Neuro Change Solutions consultant. I'm one of about 200 people in the world who are certified to be able to teach a course called Change Your Mind, Create New Results. And I'm also a HeartMath certified NCS consultant for the science and practice of heart coherence. So today I'm kind of bringing all my passions and loves together to share with you what I've discovered about frequency, about our thoughts, about the mind-body connection. So I want to share this quote from you from Abdu'l-Baha, who is the son of the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith. And Abdu'l-Baha came to this country in 1912, and this comes from a talk that he gave at a university. Through the knowledge bestowed by science, human beings can discover the secrets of the universe. With science alone, man can unlock the secrets of the past and accurately forecast the shape of future events. With science, he can explain the processes of nature and can comprehend the movements of the heavenly bodies. Science glorifies man forever. It is his means of achieving honor and dignity in the world. Science can also unlock the secrets of the holy books. It uncovers the secret of reality. Science serves the world of reality. It can save man from the superstition of the religions of the past, revealing to him the reality of the religions of God. Therefore, since science casts out fear and reveals the kingdom of heaven, I ask God to raise the banner of science higher each day, to make its star shine brighter until all the populations of the world attain to understanding. Let minds advance, inventions increase. Let hearts expand and understanding deepen. Let mankind make progress in all his goodly endeavors. And under the shadow of Almighty God, let the utmost happiness be realized by all mankind. For all of these things are present potentially in the world of reality, and the gifts of God for unleashing this potential is science. So when I came across this particular quote, I was just blown away because it really truly is the marriage between the two. As I mentioned, I grew up in a faith. Being a Baha'i, my mother heard about the Baha'i faith when she was pregnant with me, and I chose this faith path for myself when I was 16, that I have these beautiful writings that tell me what to do, but I don't necessarily have a roadmap of how to get there. And what I'm discovering through science, and very specifically through my work with Dr. Joe Dispenza, is how to put into practice these beautiful writings that come from the Baha'i faith. So I'm going to go a little bit today into the heart math work because there is so much power in the heart. And all of this is research-based. These are some of the journals that the Heart Math Institute's findings are in. And if you're interested, you can go to YouTube and look at all kinds of neat videos. And there are also books that you can get. But one of the things that we know, right, is that we are made up of atoms. And atoms are 99.9999999% energy and only 0.000001 matter. So what kind of energy are we bringing to everything we do in life? So we can see here that we are basically energy systems that expand and renew energy. Again, this comes from heart math. Constant energy expenditures without the balance of adequate rest and recovery can lead to burnout, errors, health challenges, and diminished performance. So, the domains of energy. Each one of us have a physical, an emotional, a spiritual, and a mental aspect or body within us. And it's really sweet because this is also the belief and understanding of many Native American traditions, and very specifically the Lakota. And I want to welcome some of my Lakota brothers and sisters who are here today. Thank you so much for being here. But this medicine wheel that is everywhere in Lakota spirituality says the same thing, that we each need to feed that physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental body to be healthy and well and educated. Now, in the heart math work, when we have physical flexibility, we have endurance and strength. When we have emotional flexibility, we have a positive outlook on life. We're able to self-regulate. When we have that spiritual flexibility, we're committed to our values, and there's tolerance of others' values and beliefs. I personally don't like the word tolerance because none of us want to be tolerated, but rather that oneness, right? We can accept the beliefs and values of others. And then, of course, having mental flexibility, the attention span, ability to focus, and incorporate multiple points of view. And when all of these aspects come together as one, we create coherence. We create coherence in our bodies and in our brains. Coherence is when everything is working together in unison. Now, what are the emotional effects of physiology? More than what I want to talk to you about, is the emotions affect our physiology more than our thoughts. So many of us think that it's our brain or our mind that is leading the show, but really it's our feelings and emotions. So emotions are primary drivers of the activities in our major body systems. They also determine our level of engagement in life's events, what motivates us, and how we spend our energy. So, one of the things that HeartMath has done is they've created this heart rate variable monitor. And it's a really cool device that hooks up to your ear, and it shows how our heart responds to different life events and stresses. And such as a positive and happy emotions, or negative or feeling stressed out. As the picture shows, our heart is more sustainable and slower when we're feeling calm, relaxed, and positive, whereas when feeling stressed out, anxious, and angry, our heart rate begins to increase. It becomes more erratic and it fluctuates more often. So at the top image, you can see that this person is in a lot of incoherence in their heart. Their feelings of frustration, anxiety, worry, and irritation. So this person, this individual, was hooked up to a heart rate variable monitor, and this was the feelings that they were feeling. Now, when you can monitor or reconnect and go into coherence, and you can bring up the emotions of appreciation, love, care, and gratitude, your heart rate variable monitor goes into coherence. And this is what you see. So you see it just in another example of someone who's feeling positive emotions, and then someone else who's feeling stressed out. And I bet each of you who are here today can relate to this, right? When you're feeling positive, when you're feeling gratitude or appreciation or love, you feel like at peace and relaxed. Whereas when you're feeling stressed out, there's often a lot of negative energy or a lot of incoherence in our bodies, which creates that stress. So some of the depleting emotions and attitudes are frustration, impatience, cynicism, and anger. Having a toxic feeling and cause the release of stress hormones. So one of the things that we know through scientific research is every single time we have a thought, that thought builds upon another thought. And if you are feeling frustration or impatience or cynicism or anger, your limbic brain, that midbrain, your chemical brain, sends a message through neuropeptides down to your adrenals, and then your body is flooded with those chemicals. So that's one of the reasons why we have such issues around stress and frustration and creating disease in the body. So when we experience these depleting emotions, we have reduced muscle mass, we have brain cell death, we have impaired memory, there's accelerated aging, impaired mental functions, and diminished performance. I would like each of you to just take a moment to put into the chat, what are some of your self-limiting emotions, thoughts, or beliefs? Could we just take like 30 seconds and it'll be anonymous? Well, it's not quite anonymous because you're there, but no one's going to be looking at that. It's not personal to you. But if we could just take a moment to, it doesn't have to be to your life. It may be something that you've seen your friend or family members experience, but could you all just take a quick moment and put into the chat some of the self-limiting emotions, thoughts, and beliefs that we have had at some point in time in our lives, or a loved one might be feeling. Go. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. So fear of the unknown, feeling worthless, not feeling good enough, being a victim of abuse, not enough, trauma, physical pain, anxiety, being a survivor of any kind of abuse, disabled. Thank you so much. Feeling unsafe. Yes, those are all such important things to recognize, because only when we create awareness about these things can we change them. Now, if we go on and we look at renewing emotions and attitudes, and I promise all of this will tie together. I'm building a model for you here, so just be patient with me. But when we have renewing emotions and attitudes of patience, kindness, compassion, and appreciation, we create neurochemicals that regenerate our system and offset energy drain. So when we're in love, when we're excited, when we're joyful, you know, Abdu'l-Baha, again, the son of the prophet, founder of the Baha'i faith, said, joy is a better cure for your illnesses than 100,000 medicines. And when I read that quote for the first time, I was like, I don't understand this. But looking at this work, understanding what the HeartMath Institute is doing and what Dr. Joe Dispenza and so many others in the fields of neuroscience are teaching us is that we can turn that around. So when we have renewing emotions, we have increased longevity, we have resilience to adversity, we have improved memory, we're better able to problem solve, we have increased intuition and creativity, and finally, we have job performance and better achievement in our lives. So let's also take another moment to put in the chat, what are some of the practices that you have that are renewing for you? What are some of the things that you do in your life that is a renewing practice that helps you change that energy within yourself? Yes, laughter is the best medicine. God loves laughter. Being with friends, yes, helping people, journaling, swimming. There's a beautiful quote from Abdu'l-Baha that also talks about, like, you know, when you're sad within yourself and you can't look up, go out and be of service to someone else. Prayer, sleep, rest. Yes, spending time with positive people, meditation, good food, nutrition. Excellent. Thank you so much. These are all so important. And we learn from one another, right? Because someone might say something that is a renewing practice for them that we hadn't thought of. So thank you so much for sharing. We're all learning together. So one of the things that Albert Einstein said is everything is energy. That's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics. So one of the things that you saw Dr. Joe talk about in the previous video that I showed is that energy, right? And one of the things that we know is that when we expand our focus and we put out into the world peace, love, joy, enlightenment, then we are able to really bring in a greater version of who we want to be. But if we're focused on shame, guilt, fear, grief, then we're very limited in what it is that we can achieve and what it is. Often we go through that cycle over and over and over again when we're feeling those negative self-limiting emotions. So one of the beautiful things, and I wish someone would have taught this to me when I was so much younger, my whole life would be different, is that it only takes, science proves today that it only takes 90 seconds to 3 minutes to do a reset. And so this particular heart rate variable monitor is someone who is at work. You can see they're just kind of going along, and then they start to become frustrated with a coworker. And that frustration knocks them out of balance. And, one of the things that Dr. Joe talks about, and I teach in the course that I do in the Change Your Mind, Create New Results workshop, is that stress is when the mind and body are knocked out of homeostasis. Stress is when the mind and body are knocked out of balance. But what we know we can do is we can go into a heart-focused breathing. And that's what this individual did. After they got very frustrated with a coworker, they sat down somewhere, they took breaths into their heart or heart space area. They breathed slower and deeper than they normally do. And then they were able to go back into balance. How many of us have said things when we've been in stress or fight or flight or survival that we wished we could take back, right? I'm sure every single one of us at some point in our life have done that. Some of us maybe more than others. But when we're at the height of that feeling, all we have to do is excuse ourselves from that situation, go into heart-focused breathing, and we can go back into homeostasis. And HeartMath Institute is teaching us how to do that. So one of the things that I've been really excited about most recently is frequency. And that's what Albert Einstein was talking about in his last quote that I shared, right? Everything is energy. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy, it's physics. And this is a short clip of a talk that Terrence Howard gave at Cambridge University. And he's talking about frequency here. So I want to share this with you.
Simple. Our DNA is made up of what? 5 elements, right? Hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, and oxygen. Do you know how they're arranged? The phosphorus sits right here in the middle, and you've got 4 oxygen atoms surrounding it. Then there's another phosphorus, 2 more oxygen atoms. Now these are the legs of that double helix. These are the legs. Now, the latter steps on it, they become the adenine, the guanine, the cytosine, and thymine, the ATCGs. It turns out hydrogen, they used to think that energy, the body transferred or understood the energy information through electricity. They're finding out it's through frequency. Well, guess what hydrogen sounds like? It's a key of E. Guess what? And it's the color yellow. That's what proper physics gets you to. Oxygen is a chartreuse, and it's the key of F over F sharp. Now, they used to, like I said, information used to be thought about as just electrical information passing on. But I've got a question for you. Have you ever been at a party with some of your friends you ain't seen in 10 years, but y'all was like 14, you hung out and there's a song that came on and you was like, "Ugh," and everybody got up and was live at that moment. Now say 10 years later you got a friend with you. He's a good guy, but he wasn't there when me and my boys formed this. So when that song comes on, our DNA tightens. There's a particular song, a scale in the genomes for each and every one of us. Now, when that song is played, when your particular prime resonant frequency is played, guess what happens? Your DNA celebrates and tightens. Everything else gets pushed out.
So you all, I'm sure, have walked into a room and there's been a lot of energy, a lot of high frequency. Everyone is happy and excited and joyful. And you might not have been feeling so great before you walked in the room. But once you get into that space, because the frequency is so high with everyone, it starts bringing you up, right? The same thing is true of the reverse. Have you ever walked into a room where people were just frustrated and angry and just not doing very well in life, right? It tends to rob you of your energy and it brings your frequency down. So the more we can start to understand frequency and how we bring the right frequency to every situation, the better we will be in our lives. So I want to bring us back to this quote, "Build for yourselves such houses as the rains and floods can never destroy, which shall protect you from the changes and chances of this life." And I want to share with you another short video by Dr. Joe talking about this.
You're willing to take your attention off of everybody else and sit down before you start your day and decide who you're going to present to the world that day. And you're able to maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day. You better get ready, because something unusual is going to happen in your life. It's the law. And the brain's job is to create meaning between what's going on out there and what's going on in here. And if you have the ability to move back and forth between those two states with a certain amount of elegance and not give your power to anyone or anything, and you're able to sustain that, you will begin to attract conditions in your life equal to who you're being in that moment.
So we attract those things equal to who we are, right? So one of the things that is so exciting about the work that Dr. Joe Dispenza is doing is the scientific research that he's doing specifically around meditation. So he's been doing these 7-day retreats for the last couple of years all over the world, and they're doing a lot of scientific research where they're taking the blood of novice and advanced meditators, and also kind of the people who are just like, maybe one of their relatives is at the event and they're sitting by the pool, so they're kind of on vacation. And they've been uncovering the most incredible science, which is so exciting. So one of those things I'd like to share with you. So right before COVID, it was February of 2020, they did an event in Indian Wells, California. And at this event, they took the blood pre and post and saliva and heart rate variable monitors, and they also did brain scans. They did this whole thing with a sampling of the people that were there. And one of the individuals that was there had a spontaneous healing remission. He had cancer, and his cancer was healed during that event. And so a few months later, COVID shuts down the world. They have his blood pre-spontaneous healing remission and post. And what they did was they couldn't get their hands on COVID because no one knew at that point what it was and how it was interacting and all of that. But they created a pseudovirus that mimicked COVID. And they took the blood of this individual pre and post. Pre, they exposed the blood to the virus, and the virus invaded all of his cells. Post, after his spontaneous healing remission, the virus sat on top of the cells and never permeated the cells of the blood. So there's something that's happening here in the scientific world around meditation and around frequency and elevating what it is, how we think, that we really are on the cutting edge of, and is so exciting. Now let's take a look at, we just kind of went through a journey of what science is starting to uncover and discover around meditation, the power of it, and also our thoughts and feelings and those depleting and renewing feelings and emotions. Let's take a look at what the Baha'i writings say about meditation. Meditation is the key for opening the doors of mysteries. In that state, man abstracts himself. In that state, man withdraws himself from all outside objects. In that subjective mood, he is immersed in the ocean of spiritual life and can unfold the secrets of things in themselves. This faculty brings forth from the invisible plane the sciences and the arts. Look at that. Meditation. This faculty brings forth from the invisible plane the sciences and the arts. Through the meditative faculty, inventions are made possible, colossal undertakings are carried out. Through it, governments can run smoothly. Through this faculty, man enters into the very kingdom of God. So, our brain thinks 60 to 70,000 thoughts every single day. And 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts you had yesterday and the day before that and the day before that. You see here some fun facts about the brain. It's a 3-pound universe that processes these 70,000 thoughts each day. There are 100 billion neurons that connect at more than 50 trillion points throughout synapses that travel 300 miles an hour, I should say. The signals that travel through these interconnected neurons form the basis of memories, thoughts, and feelings. So we know that it's very powerful. The brain generates enough electricity to power a light bulb. We know that it's busy when you think, see, or move. Electrical signals race among billions of neurons. It's amazing that the brain creates thoughts, drives emotions, and stores memories. The brain is at work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about what happens in brain science through these neurological synapses. Okay, so over on the upper right-hand side, you see these 2 neurological synapses connections. And every time we have a thought, these synapses join together. And they form gangs of neurons that kind of create the subconscious of what's going on in our world. Now, one of the things that we know is that if we want to stop thinking a self-limiting belief or thought, we have to prune away that connection. And for some of us, we've been having those thoughts for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, right? So that neurological connection in our brain is a very well-worn path. So right under that, you see a beautiful image in South Dakota on Pine Ridge, and you see the very clear pathway, right? That's that thought that you've thought over and over and over and over again in your life, and it doesn't serve you well. But let's say you want to change that thought. You see the pathway leading up the center there? We're starting to wear that neurological pathway into the environment. The same thing is happening in the brain. And if I keep driving over it again and again and again, it's going to create a new connection, a new neurological connection in the brain. It's going to prune away the old and replace it with the new. But it doesn't work unless I do it over and over and over and over and over and over again to create that new pathway. So this here is a quote from Abdu'l-Baha. He says, I charge you all that each one of you concentrate all your thoughts, all the thoughts of your heart on love and unity. When a thought of war comes, oppose it by a stronger thought of peace. A thought of hatred must be destroyed by a more powerful thought of love. Thoughts of war bring destruction to all harmony, well-being, restfulness, and content. Thoughts of love are constructive of brotherhood, peace, friendship, and happiness. So when Abdu'l-Baha talked about when a thought of war comes, oppose it by a stronger thought of peace, or a thought of hatred must be destroyed by a more powerful thought of love, he was being literal in this. And we know this now based on brain science and the pruning away of that thought of war. If I replace it by a stronger thought of peace, and I do it over and over and over again, it becomes the most worn pathway, and that old thought is pruned away. Isn't the connection between science and spirituality so cool? I love it. Baha'u'llah has written, meditate profoundly, that the secret of things unseen may be revealed unto you, that you may inhale the sweetness of a spiritual and imperishable fragrance, and that you may acknowledge the truth, so that light may be distinguished from darkness, truth from falsehood, right from wrong, guidance from error, happiness from misery, and roses from thorns. Energy follows attention. We need to shift our attention from what we are trying to avoid to what we want to bring into reality. One of the things that Dr. Joe always says is where you place your attention is where you place your energy. So energy follows attention. So I'm wrapping up this conversation today. I look forward to answering any questions you might have, but I just have two more short things to share with you. This here will speak for itself. I've found for myself that the only way that I can build for myself such houses that the rains and floods can never destroy, where the changes and chances of this life will not deter me, is through prayer and meditation. So long as the thoughts of an individual are scattered, he will achieve no results. But if his thinking be concentrated on a single point, wonderful will be the fruits thereof. Once the sun shineth upon a concave mirror, or on a lens that is convex, all its heat will be concentrated on a single point, and that one point will burn the hottest. Thus, it is necessary to focus one's thinking on a single point so that it will become an effective force. Have patience, wait, do not sit idle, work while you are waiting, smile while you are worried with monotony, be firm while everything around you is being shaken, be joyous while the ugly face of despair grins at you. Speak aloud while the malevolent forces of the netherworld try to crush your mind. Be valiant and courageous while men all around you are cringing with fear and cowardice. Do not yield to the overwhelming power of tyranny and despotism. Continue your journey to the end. The bright day is coming. And finally, I want to leave you with a beautiful passage that Dr. Wayne Dyer wrote in Living an Inspired Life. This passage comes from the inspiration of your own magnificence, changing our awareness of ourselves. And this is what he wrote. How would we think and act in daily life if we were truly aware of our divine essence? Obliviously, there wouldn't be room. I'm sorry, let me start over. How would we think and act in daily life if we were truly aware of our divine essence? Obviously, there wouldn't be room to reproach ourselves because we wouldn't doubt our abilities. In fact, we'd never look in the mirror and feel anything but love and appreciation. We'd see ourselves as fully capable of attracting all we desire. We'd treat our bodies with reverence and care, giving thanks for its divine design. We'd celebrate every thought we have, knowing its divine origin, and would become aware of our enormous talents and be awed by all that we are. We need to encourage the awareness of our magnificence in every regard. When that awareness has been reawakened, the seedlings of inspiration will begin blossoming. Here's a way of expressing these fundamental truths offered by the writings of Baha'u'llah, of the Baha'i faith. He writes, "This most great, this fathomless and surging ocean is near, astonishingly near unto you. Behold, it is closer to you than your life vein. Swift as the twinkling of an eye, ye can, if ye but wish it, reach and partake of this imperishable favor, this God-given grace, this incorruptible gift, this most potent and unspeakably glorious bounty. There is no way to be in spirit without a changed awareness. So when we accomplish this, we give ourselves the gift of moving from being flawed, limited, lacking, and imperfect to being completely comfortable with our own magnificence. This unspeakably glorious bounty is so close to us. All we have to do is make a few twinkling of the eye adjustments. So why not begin now? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was a really amazing talk. And thank you everyone for sharing your, personal experiences as well in the chat. So now we have some time for Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, you can put it in the chat.
I love that. Someone wrote, science is finally catching up to what Baha'u'llah revealed over 150 years ago. It's so true. Isn't it exciting?
There's a question. Please tell us more about your training and practice.
So, in the 5 steps of prayer, Shoghi Effendi says in step 1 to pray and meditate. And so all my life I've prayed every day. But it wasn't until I started going through my dark night of the soul that I started meditating. And it was truly the thing that saved my life. So I have a meditation practice that I do every day. Some of them are longer than others. But I do often guided meditations. I find that just sitting in silence is challenging for me. But if I'm guided to something, I do a lot better. But sometimes I'll just sit in the silence of contemplation, especially if I've prayed about something and I need an answer. I find that if I go into that prayerful meditative state and ask for the question, it will be revealed in one way, shape, or form. The trainings that I do, the one is called Change Your Mind, Create New Results. It's a 15-hour workshop, and it comes with a workbook. It was developed by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I am trained by him and his team to be able to offer this work. And I am finding that it has had a great impact on my life because, like I said, I had these beautiful, perfect writings that taught me how to live my life, but I didn't have the roadmap of how to get there. And one of the beautiful things about the Change Your Mind, Create New Results workshop is it really makes it personal to you. And there's a 30-day process, follow-up process that helps you like prune away those old synaptic connections. So, to create Abdu'l-Baha in that last quote, not in the last quote, but one of the last quotes, Abdu'l-Baha said, you have to focus on that single point. So the really neat thing about this workshop is that every day you write down how I no longer want to think, act, or feel, but what do you want to replace that with? So you prune away the old and replace it with the new so that you can really get that worn in pathway. That neurological connection in the brain can be much deeper. Any other questions? Just as you're thinking about any other questions, I wanted to share that Give to Give is a nonprofit organization that has been doing incredible work with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and they have been bringing this work to the Lakota community. And over the last few months, we've done a couple of programs in the jails. And, so many of us want to make a change in our lives. We want to change something about our life and who we are, but no one's really ever taught us how to do that. And this is a step-by-step process of how to use the thinking, feeling loop, the mind-body connection to make significant change from the inside out. And it's really exciting to see people who are in prison or jail for whatever reason. Most of the time in Pine Ridge anyways, it's around alcohol and drug addiction. And these men coming out of this workshop are so excited because they're like, how, finally I know how to change my life, so that's really exciting to see because there's hope for the first time.
There's a question about where do we get these courses?
So you can go to neurochangesolutions.com and you might be able to find a Neurochange Solutions consultant near you. And you can also just email me at faithholmes@gmail.com. I'll put my email in the chat. And
Thank
The
you.
other course from Heart Math is also offered, but it's only offered after the Change Your Mind, Create New Results class.
If people could put their question if I didn't get to it again, because my chat got kind of scrambled. So if people have questions I didn't ask yet, if you could just put it again.
Okay, so I see a question here. Can you tell us more about us being mostly energy and how this works? How it also helps us to affect changes in our lives. So if we look at the fact that, one of the things that Dr. Joe talks about is how if you were to take me and divide the energy and the matter of me and blow it up to a size that all of us could relate to, the matter of me would be like a Volkswagen car. The energy of me would make up the state of Utah. Like that's how powerful our energy and frequency is. So how do we change that eternal state within us? How do we build for ourselves such houses that the rains and floods can never destroy? Well, the only way to do that is to become so clear and so secure in your internal state through that prayer and meditative faculty that no matter what is going on around us, we aren't deterred. We aren't taken off. We aren't allowing our environment, what's going on around us to take us off of that feeling. We're not allowing our body, any of the things that control us, to deter us or to take us off of what we really truly know we need to do, or time. So many of us live either in the past or in the future. There's the familiar past and the predictable future. So many of us can take our yesterday and put it tomorrow. We're having the same day over and over and over again. But where the sweet spot is in the generous present moment. How do we be right here, right now, and just allow the divine, allow God to guide our thoughts and our actions? So that's really how we change that energy within and around us. Thank you.
There's a question about Dr. Wayne Dyer. Is he a Baha'i?
Not to my knowledge, but he quotes Baha'u'llah in this book, Living an Inspired Life. So he must have been inspired by Baha'u'llah's writings. I guess I would just like to share that it is this intersection for me of science and religion, or science and spirituality. It's hard. I know I'm a Baha'i, that's my religion, but it's so much more a way of life for me. And religion has devastated so many people in the world that I know a lot of people have a hard time like being religious. I definitely am. But it's this intersection of science and religion that has allowed me to help me understand my faith. And I think that, the more we can research and the more we can be of service to humanity, the better we can be.
We have a few more questions. The quote, "Joy gives us wings," is very powerful and a basis for many scientific discoveries. Can you comment on that quote?
It's one of my most favorite quotes, but I know it's true. When I think about like seeing the scientific research that's coming out of these 7-day retreats with novice and advanced meditators, seeing the blood, the saliva, the tears, all of the points at which they are studying what happens within us while we're meditating, this quote, "Joy gives us wings," brings on a whole other level of understanding, because that dis-ease in our body that creates disease, if we can replace that with joy, joy is a better cure for your illnesses than 100,000 medicines. I used to think my faith was beautiful and esoteric. Now I understand it to be literal, and I'm thankful for that. And that quote to me is a very literal quote.
How do you balance, or how does one balance being involved in the betterment of the world, but detached at the same time?
I think we have to be super clear on what we allow into our purview. So I personally don't watch the news. Like I personally, first of all, the reason why I don't watch the news is because so much of it is someone's agenda, whatever that is. I don't necessarily feel like I'm learning anything. And I feel like we as humanity are being deeply manipulated at this time, and it's disunifying us. So for me, I really feel like it's super important to protect what I allow into my space, what social media I allow. Like I've gotten to a point where I've kind of taken a fast for the most part of social media because I feel like it often causes me to feel badly instead of lift me up. So for me, how we be of service to the world of humanity, I think each of us were created with a blueprint of something that we're to give to this life, this world, our gifts. So to tap into that is, I think, the most important thing to do. And when we realize that the only thing that we can really truly control is ourselves, our actions and our reactions to things, and if we go into that prayer and meditative state daily, we can, what I've experienced anyways, because of that, is we can course correct much easier. And I don't get caught up in all of the things, the changes and chances of this world. I don't allow those things to break me down. And when something happens where it does, I go back into that heart-focused breathing. I go back into that heart space and I ask the divine, I ask God to free me of whatever is taking me off of where I should be and ask to reconnect to that. And I might have to do that 1,000 times a day. On bad days, I do. But, sometimes I'm able to do it, just in the morning, and then it carries me through all day. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Any final questions?
I want to thank my brother Yusha for being here today. My sister Sandy, Vicky, I just want to take a moment to thank you for coming and being a part of this. Constance, and any of my loved ones who I may not see on the screen.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much again. This talk will be available on our YouTube channel next week, so y'all can watch it and share it afterwards as well. Thank you so much for your talk.
Oh, I would like to also share, I am giving a workshop in Olympia, Washington in February, a 3-day workshop. So if anyone is in the Washington area and is interested, please reach out to me. And next month in March, I will be doing an online Zoom presentation. So if anyone's interested, just send me an email.
Great, thank you. It's exciting. So our speaker next week will be Ms. Karen Webb, and her topic will be Rodus, the last disciple of the Bab. So we'll see you all next week and hope you all have a great week. Thank you. Bye.